Greetings, peace be with you. In this video, you're going to discover why semen retention is the key that unlocks your personal power. You're also going to discover the source of true power in your life, right? How to tap into it, how to utilize the practice of retaining your life force energy in order to become more in your life. And towards the end of this video, I'm going to be sharing with you how to develop real power in your life, how to make that shift from trying to force it, trying to push it, trying to control people, trying to manipulate people into the ever-flowing essence of true power, okay? Because when I got started on this journey of masculine development, of improving, of leveling up, of course, I had a desire to be a more powerful man, right? To be more capable as an individual, right? And I suppose that that's part of the reason you're watching this video right now. It's part of the reason that you're improving, that you're learning, that you're growing, right? That you're exposing yourself to these ideas that you may not have considered in the past. You're valuing education over entertainment, right? And I commend you for that. But when I got started on this journey, I had a messed up conception of what power actually is, right? I read a book called 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene, and back through my immature lens of looking at the world, when I picked up that book, I thought that I had to control people. I thought I had to manipulate people. I thought I had to play games with people. I thought I had to push other people down in order to come out on top. And these were the laws that were recommended in 48 Laws of Power. For example, make other people do the work and take all the credit, right? Play as a friend but act as a spy, right? Like stuff like this, which I suppose it's very, very important to know about it, to be aware of it, so that not so that you can go and play games with people and manipulate people. Okay, if that's what you want to do, then I don't know if this is the right channel for you at the end of the day, okay? But it's so that you have an awareness of the games that people play. And then if they end up trying to play those games, you know what those games are, and then you just choose not to engage in that game. Right? You have an awareness of when people play those power games with you, and then you don't get played at the end of the day, right? So that is why I believe this is an essential reading. But like I said, when I read this book through the immature lens of my 17-year-old self is when I thought I had to do those things, right? And it painted the picture of power in my head as something negative, right? Something that was not in alignment with morals, with virtue, right? And that disconnect between one side of me saying I need to be powerful, I need to play games with people, and the other side saying that I need to be virtuous, I need to be moral, I need to follow my morals, I need to have high values in my life. And that disconnect threw me out of harmony, right? Now, at this point in my journey, I understand that power is everything, okay? If you don't have power, you don't have the ability to create results in your life, okay? When we look at the essence of power, when we look at the core of power, when we look at the etymology of power, right? Where this word actually comes from, it comes from Latin. It comes from posse, right? In Latin, which literally means ability, right? Power is your ability to conceive of an image in your head and then to begin to bring that image into fruition into this physical dimension, right? It's basically conceiving of your ideal image, your goals, your vision, and then actually being able to bring it into fruition, right? Not just thinking about it, but actually bringing it to life. And that is the importance of semen retention as well, because like I've talked about in so many other videos, semen retention is the source of your creative energy. And when you can conceive of an image that is bigger than your current circumstances, right? That's step number one. Step number two is actually exerting our energy, our effort, our hard work towards creating that image and bringing it into reality, right? Now, Dr. David R. Hawkins wrote a very important book called Power versus Force, in which he draws a distinction between these two different motivations, right? And what he used is the concept of behavioral kinesiology, right? And this is basically like muscle testing, in which they put different intellectual stimuli into the subject's mind. For example, like, okay, now you can smile and say, I love you, smile, I love you. And then they test the strength of your muscle resistance, right? And then they'll put another different intellectual stimuli, like something that's centered around shame or guilt. They test your muscle, and then the muscle tests weaker. And using these different intellectual stimuli, Dr. David R. Hawkins actually put together the scale of consciousness, right? So you can see that right now. And what he draws a distinction between is that of force and power, right? And that is the distinction which actually threw my head in a spiral back in the earlier parts of my personal development. And you will understand what exactly that difference is, so that you can begin to tap into the true source of power rather than forcing it all the time, rather than pushing it all the time, rather than resisting it all the time, you are moving towards this new image effortlessly, right? So what Dr. Hawkins says is that right in the middle, right, what he calls the critical inflection point is courage. Anything below courage is driven through the lens of force, right? As you can see, there's shame, there's guilt, the desire, there's anger, there's pride, right? And force implies the pushing of something, right? Pushing towards something, right? And then right above courage is everything driven through the lens of power, which is neutrality, willingness, joy, enlightenment, right? This is not the full spectrum of consciousness. There's 17 different levels. I just mapped out some important ones over here. But it's important to understand that right above courage, everything is driven through the lens of power. And below courage, everything is driven through the lens of force, right? So what exactly is the difference? So you can think of power as anabolic, right? To build up, as a constructive force, right? And force is something that is catabolic, right? It's something that is destructive, that is breaking it down, that is, yeah, like I said, not exactly building up, but breaking down, right? Anabolic versus catabolic. And what it really comes down to, right? Power is moving towards motivation and force is moving away from motivation, right? When you are driven through the lens of shame, let this motorbike cross by. When you're driven through the... Yeah, man, these sounds distract me straight to the head. But when you are driven through the lens of shame, through guilt, through desire, through anger, through pride, that is when you're trying to move away from a certain insecurity, right? So many of us carry this emotional baggage that has been picked up since childhood, from parental programming, from school, from conditioning, from all the information that we picked up, like these dribbles and dribbles of information since we were kids, right? And everyone's like dragging around these suitcases of emotional baggage, and that emotional baggage is what makes us feel like we're not enough, makes us feel insecure, and therefore we begin making our decisions through the lens of force, right? Through the lens of shame, through the lens of guilt, right? The lens of desire, through the lens of trying to force something. It's like, I don't want to watch pornography anymore. I'm going to quit. I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm going to resist it even when I feel like it. I'm going to go and do some push-ups. I'm going to go take a cold shower. I'm done. I'm not going to watch it anymore. Okay, I'm on day 180. I'm on day 200. Oh, shit. I relapse, right? That is a cycle that a lot of men go through because they are using force to create change in their life, right? But when we tap into the true power of moving towards something, right? When we're moving towards a vision, that is when we are moving towards it. Rather than pushing ourselves to it, we're moving towards it. We're pulled rather than having to push ourselves, right? And what if all these behaviors that you are in the process of putting an end to, what if you stop them not because they're bad habits or because you must stop them or because the people around you are saying that you should stop them? What if you, instead of that being your motivation became that it no longer is an accurate representation of who you really are, right? If you let your vision drive your decisions, then you're moving towards that vision rather than pushing away all this emotional baggage that you have holding you back, right? So I hope you catch that nuance over there, right? Moving towards motivation, moving towards more health, towards more strength, towards more fulfillment, towards more prosperity, towards more abundance, rather than moving away from scarcity, from fear, from guilt, from shame, right? You can see the difference in the motivation that allows us to move towards versus move away from something, right? So that's the difference between power and force. And again, like you could be doing the practice of semen retention with force, right? Whereby you're resisting everything. Whatever you resist will persist in your life. You can resist all these negative habits, or you can let go of them and move towards this new version of yourself because you have this new creative energy. And the reason is because these old habits no longer represent who you are. Okay, they no longer are an accurate representation of who you are, and therefore you let go of them. Okay, I hope you catch that because it's very, very powerful over here, right? And power is associated with win-win situations and force is associated with lose-lose situations. For example, you're doing business, right? You can go and manipulate someone and rip them off, and you can basically get more money than the product that you're selling is valued at, right? You rip them off, you're never going to do business with them again, but somehow you come out on top, but your virtue is damaged, your morals are damaged, right? Your higher self knows that. So you end up coming on the bottom, even though short term you come out on top financially. that person comes out on the bottom as well. And that is again centered through the lens of manipulation. Now, if you were to think about win-win, if you were to offer 10 times more value to someone than you're asking for in payment, then you come out on top because you're able to help so many people. Then all those people come out on top because they're benefiting from your product, and it becomes a win-win cycle from there. Okay, the only way to achieve long-term progress, to achieve long-term success, comes when we think about the bigger picture. When everyone engaged in the interaction, whether it's business, whether it's any relationship, when the sum is greater than its parts, right? When you are delivering more value than you ask for in return, that is the only way to sustainable progress and long-term success in your life, right? You can use force. You might be able to come out on top. You might be able to rip some people off. You might be able to manipulate some people here and there, right? You come out on top and you're sitting there, but your morals are destroyed. You're no longer a man of virtue, and people will no longer do business with you because your reputation is destroyed, right? So very important to consider that short-term gain versus that gain where everyone's coming out on top, and in the long term that serves you as well, right? Now, power is associated with giving and force is associated with leeching, right? I love this quote from Zig Ziglar, who said that you can get anything that you want in your life if you help enough other people get what they want, right? That is a source of power, right? Because if I help you, then I help someone else, I help someone else, I help someone else, and I give, right? The more I give, the more I receive, the more I receive, the more I give, and it becomes a positive virtuous cycle from there, right? That is the source of power. Now, force is, on the other hand, is associated with taking, right? I want to take value from someone else. I want to leech off someone else. I want to get something, right? And again, that is driven through the lens of force. That is driven through the lens of fear, because when you don't feel like you are enough is when you are driven through the lens of feeling like you need to get something outside of you. Again, it links back to semen retention. Are you doing this because you don't feel like you're enough? Are you doing this because you want to be better, right? Or are you doing this because you understand the true power of its ability to raise your level of consciousness, to raise your level of awareness, to raise your level and capacity to conceive of something beyond your current circumstances, your current environment, right? To conceive of that image, which is the source of your creative energy, and to begin implementing the action steps that allow you to move towards that image, right? It's a subtle nuance over here, right? But two people, like I said, can be doing the same exact thing, but have very different intentions, and therefore get something completely different, right? Get a different result, get a different outcome, right? Very, very important. And power is total and complete, like I said, right? It's enough. Whereas force is feeling insufficient, right? When you feel insufficient, when you have a hole inside of you, you try to fill it with something outside of you, that hole just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Unless we just close that hole from the bottom, right? Which is our own emotions, right? Which is letting go of emotions that no longer serve us, right? And power is driven through the lens of service, right? Service to the benefit of humanity. And force is driven through self-interest. How can I, this little ego cage of me, my and mine, how can I make this cage even bigger somehow, right? How can I get more stuff into this cage right now? So that's the difference between power and force, right? And the reason that semen retention factors into your ability to show up as a strong, capable, powerful man that you are meant to be is because it starts with a vision, right? It starts with moving towards something. And if you're not practicing semen retention, is when you don't have the creative resources, when you don't have the creative energy to actually construct that image in your mind of what you truly want in life, right? What is your purpose? Why are you here? Why do you do what you do? What does your ideal vision look like? Where do you see yourself in the next 3 years? What does your bank account look like in the next 1 year? What do your relationships look like in the next 10 years? Right? Think about that. Really think about that. Because if you aren't able to do that, then you aren't having clarity in your life. And when you don't have clarity, then you just end up going according to someone else's plans, right? If you don't have a plan, you go according to someone else's plan, right? Very, very important to understand the difference between power versus force, because we want to move towards this new vision. We want to move towards this new version of ourselves rather than move away from this person that we no longer want to be, right? The more we resist that old person, the more that old person will persist. But when we let go of that old person and open up to this whole new reality is when everything changes in our life, right? Now, the source of true power is, what is it? What do you think the source of true power is? Okay, the source of true power is meaning, is hope, is your vision. Okay? Because when you don't believe that the future will be better than it is right now, that is when you get caught up in anxiety, in depression, in that negative spiral. You're like, yo, I'm in this position and it's only getting worse. So why try to improve? On the other hand, when you have a vision that, like I said, is bigger than your current circumstances, which is driven through your own practice of semen retention, right? To conceive of something beyond your current circumstances requires energy, requires creative energy. And when you don't have that creative energy, you can't actually create that vision. And when you don't create that vision, you become hopeless. Okay, there's a very interesting study that a bunch of Harvard researchers ran. Okay, now it has something to do with animal cruelty, so either way, they brought in a bunch of rats, right? So they put rats inside some water, right? And they're like, yo, how long can these rats swim before they start sinking? So they put them in. They're like, okay, shit, they only last like 12 minutes, right? And in the second part of the experiment, they're like, okay, they last 12 minutes. So they put them in. And right at the 11th minute, they pull them out. They dry them out a bit, right? Let them have a little rest. And then they put them back in the water. Now, how long do you think that these rats lasted the second time around, right? First round was like 12 minutes. Second round was, what do you think? Second round was close to 60 hours. That's crazy. What do you think is driving that? What do you think let that rat actually swim for 12 minutes to 60 hours? It's hope, right? It's meaning. It's like this idea that maybe I'll be saved right now, right? And then that allows you to keep on going, keep on going. When you have a vision of what you want to create in your life, of what you want your life to look like, of who you want to be, and you let that vision drive your decisions, that is when you tap into the source of true power, okay? And the reason that semen retention is the source behind all of this is because semen retention is letting go of compulsive behavior, is letting go of temptations that feel good in the moment but deprive you of your future, right? Because when you develop that willpower to let go of instant gratification is when you develop the willpower to make decisions in alignment with your vision. And when you are disciplined and you value your vision over your present circumstances, when you value your vision over what feels good right now, right? When you value long-term gains over instant gratification, semen retention is a prerequisite for all of that. And only then can you actually become the conscious creator of your reality. All right? So the source of true power is your own vision of the future. And when you can actually remind yourself of that vision every single day is when you can rise above your current circumstances. When you can become the type of person that is worthy of creating that vision is when you tap into your personal power. Okay? Now, how to develop real power in your life, right? Real power, like I said, is the ability to create results in your life. Real power is the source of your ability to cultivate and develop your greatest gifts in greatest service to the world, right? I've talked about this in previous videos as well, but it comes down to the intersection between what you love doing, what you're good at, what the world will pay you for, and what the world needs, right? If we can cultivate our greatest gifts right at that intersection and truly serve humanity, that is when we elevate not only ourselves, but the collective as well. And how to develop real power really comes down to one thing. And that one thing is to become the master of your perceptions, okay? What you think is true. Whatever you believe to be true, that is what you will find evidence for, okay? So when you become the master of your perception, you choose to look at things in a way that empowers you. Again, right? Empowers you to make a change if you want to make that change. It empowers you to be at peace if you choose to be at peace, right? The outside circumstances don't dictate your internal conditions. The world inside is more real than the world outside, okay? You are in charge of your attitude, right? How you respond to a particular situation. You are the thermostat that dictates the environment rather than the thermometer that reacts to the environment, okay? So when you become a master of your perceptions is when you become responsible, all right? There's a quote from, I think it was Uncle Ben in Spider-Man. He said that with great power comes great responsibility, right? But when you take responsibility for your perceptions to become empowered, when you take responsibility right? With great responsibility. When you take responsibility for everything in your life, when you take responsibility for your health, for your finances, for your relationship, for the way that you're showing up, for every single area of your life, when you take responsibility is when you grant yourself the power to change anything, all right? The second that you take responsibility for everything is the second that you grant yourself the power to change anything. Okay, think about that. When you take responsibility is when you give yourself permission to change the thing that you don't want to change, right? And when you become a master of your perceptions, you become a master of your internal state, right? You choose what things mean to you rather than being fed out from the outside, right? And again, it all links back to the practice of semen retention, because when you are retaining this energy is when you can circulate it within your body, is when you can become that strong, grounded man that is not reactive to all these outside energies, right? Because you have the energy circulating within you. That is what you found your grounding in. That is what you found your strength in. That is what you found your foundation in. And therefore, you're not dependent on external stimulus to dictate your attitude, to dictate your behavior, to dictate what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, right? And that's when you truly unlock your personal power, because you take responsibility and you make it an obligation to move towards where you want to go at the end of the day, okay? So with that, I conclude this video. I hope you got value from it. I hope you understand the difference between power and force, and how power, true power, is driven through service, is driven through the benefit of all, is driven through construction, through building up, right? To moving towards your vision rather than moving away from your condition, right? Because whatever you resist will persist at the end of the day. And when you take responsibility for your perceptions is when you give yourself the power to change anything in your life, okay? So I hope you got value from this video, all right? This has been a different one over here. Went on a bunch of different tangents, but I hope you really understand the nuance. I hope you begin to take responsibility, and I hope you begin to implement these frameworks into your own life, all right? Love to hear from you. Let me know your number one takeaway in the comments below. Like the video if you like it, really helps the channel grow. Subscribe if you have not already. But with that all being said, this has been Mo here, and I will see you in the next video. Much love to you. Take care.